Good
Hey
evening.
Rupesh, great. Yeah, great to be here with you today. Really excited to be on your show and really excited to be on your podcast and to share some information around the AI journal and to be here and just be. We've been connected for some time, haven't we, Rupesh? And it's great to be on the show. Thank you for having me.
Pleasure. It's always fun. So yes, what I was saying is, yeah, the first season we did was AGI Inception,
Yeah,
Artificial General Intelligence Inception, right?
yeah,
And we kind of worked together on that one too.
yeah,
So the second season, let's make it a little more fun. Right? Let's just have random arguments and debates on basic topics around what AI can do, cannot do, with respect
yeah,
to whatever topic, right? The impact of artificial intelligence in education. That is what
yeah.
you're trying to say, right? This time.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what we're always behind, Rupesh, to make sure that people can be educated and people have a great experience and understanding these really tricky technologies because it's really hard for people to sometimes understand it. And I was saying on another podcast, Rupesh, that people don't always understand these buzzwords that they hear. And I think that's why people are skeptical about it. So I always go back to the point at the moment that we really need to educate people on it and we really need to push. And that's why the AI journal exists. And that's why the ecosystem exists that we're putting together to help companies and to help people that might not come across it and how it can help their business and how they can become better, become more efficient, become more profitable as a business, and what they need to do to encourage the younger generations to know that this area exists. So I think it's really important. I think it's really great that in your series two, you're going to be pushing on this, Rupesh, and I'm sure you'll have a lot of decent and great speakers touching on some other points that maybe I'm not as experienced in because I'm not a technical person, but I do
No,
know
don't
a
worry
lot
about it. Like
that I
this
want
season
to
is going
educate.
to be people our age.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's great to hear.
Because eventually think about it, right? If the people we had in the last season, some of them were old. And if
Yeah,
you consider that normally, when old people have problems with tech, who do they contact? Us only, right? People
yeah,
are age, we have to go solve it anyway. That's how it goes. Right. So anyway, it is fine. Experience is conditional. So that is not an issue.
yeah.
Education. Now you live in the UK. I grew up in India. What do you think is the difference in education systems both the places?
For the what? Sorry.
What do you think and how AI is like how AI will have an impact on education systems in let's say Europe, let's say Asia, whatever it is. We can take two continents, two countries now because you are there and here.
Yeah. So I think it'll be a lot different from Europe to. I mean, the applications will be there, but I mean, when you look at things like this, Rupesh, it's important to consider market adoption. So how quickly people want to adopt these technologies, and we touched on it in a report on augmented reality and virtual reality, and it's really important because I see augmented reality being a real game changer for education, not just in schools and not just in the lower for the younger people, but for people that are in businesses where you're dealing with high technical areas, so engineering or places like manufacturing or um, very specific electronics, so electrical wiring and knowing where to put the threads or know where to put the wires or blueprints within property. So understanding people can make the building and structure maybe a lot more secure. It will lead to a lot of new businesses in the property sector because AI can find and map data points that we currently don't know. And I think that leads us to the answer of education. I mean, I touched back on it, and I don't know if you've seen it, Rupesh. The show that's available on YouTube for free called Go or AlphaGo, and it's about how DeepMind created AlphaGo to play the game, and it ended up beating the world's best champion. And it's really interesting because that educated people in that game on how to become better, right? On how to do more, on how to become a better player, on how to make the game more interesting, found new moves that hadn't been seen before. And I think it will be the same for schools and universities and a lot of in businesses as well to figure out, okay, we've actually been doing this wrong or we've been doing this at a slower pace. And I mean, you see it all the time with companies that implement RPA or intelligent automation or things like OCR, because they can start automating things that was taking a lot of manual time, but also because they're implementing some form of machine learning, they can think, oh, okay, actually, we can read the data set this way a lot quicker rather than the way we were doing it. And I think it all goes back to the point of education that when you get into schools, I'm someone that learned by doing, and I'm always someone that learns by doing. I mean, I read a lot of books and I read a lot of papers, and I know you do as well when we're looking through them together. But it's looking at how you can read as much as you like, but until you start doing it. And I think that's where these technologies, specifically augmented reality and virtual reality, will get people a much quicker grasp. Or I mean, you're seeing it within gaming. I was on a show with Robert and he was saying Elon Musk said something along the same lines as if you could teach someone like it was a game, you'll pick it up a lot quicker. You'll grasp the idea a lot quicker. So I think it's really, really vital and really important, Rupesh, to understand these things, not just from a business point of view, but so people from a younger point of view can understand it, because they'll be the ones that without no time at all, look how quick the past year's gone, they'll soon be coming into the business side. And if we teach them that level, I think we'll innovate even faster than what we're currently doing. So I think it's a great opportunity.
Like that's the whole point, right? Like
Yeah.
we touched 2 points here. One was practical education and one was education we have to use. I'd like to add into examples too. Like think about it. As a normal ideal phone user, for instance, what do you
Yes.
normally do on your phone? Like these 5 things which we normally do: call people, take pictures, communicate, send messages, and
Yes.
play games, maybe, and spend time on social media. Roughly
Yeah.
here and there, right? So in all these things, what happens in, like now when we are seeing some applications which come up and which have AI basis there behind helping them to do everything.
Yeah.
So in that, like the utility of AI, if it is not through user standpoint based on what the user utility is,
Yes.
like think about it. If you are only habitual to, let's say, baking a cake, okay, and then you are told to, let's say, some random thing, you are told to make something you've never made, what
Yes.
would be easier for you,
Yeah. It's a good
right?
question. Yeah.
So all the basic things which you do on your phone, if those actions which we follow as users is like are kind of implemented around AI, it works.
Yeah.
Because teaching a new, it is just a click, but still people don't, those extra number of clicks make things hard, unnecessary.
Yes.
Like, so let's see how it goes on however tech comes up ahead. Like for example, now we have an app called Pixel. It
Yes.
is fixed camera. So what we do is, like, think about it, you're going to a grocery store. We are not
Yes.
doing it yet, but we are going to implement it eventually. Like we are in the process to do it. You go to a grocery store, you have like 10 different things you bought. You take a picture of it, that picture becomes an NFT bill for you.
Yes.
And when you send that picture to the shopkeeper, you have also done the payments.
Yes.
Right?
So,
Because people normally, this is my observation, I could be completely wrong about this. People
yes.
normally focus on the wrong side of AI. Like my point being is AI is just super strong, super hyper robust analytics.
Yes.
The actions and the decisions to be made are by humans only, if
Yes.
you think about it generally. So there's no way, I don't see a AI catastrophe coming very soon. Like I don't see killer robots going to walk on the streets.
Yeah.
It'll be too late to get there.
Yeah.
That should never happen. That is a different story altogether. But yeah,
Yeah. No, and I think it's a great point, Rupesh, because it's when I get asked people about when people ask me about what I think and what I see, with robotics or with, I mean, you've touched on it before, AGI or AI taking jobs or AI doing this. I just don't buy it. I don't believe it, and I don't agree with it, because I think that idea is only there because, going back to our original point, people are misinformed and they don't have the right education about what these technologies do and how they help. And I think when you look at AI in a really simple manner, it's not a tricky concept to understand it, right? It can just speed up things, it can get you things done quicker, and it can reduce your cost. It doesn't mean it has to take away people's jobs. It gives you, as a business owner or a company or a team leader or as a person, more time to do things that you say. The amount of people that say there's not enough hours in a day, or there's not enough things in a day, they agree with the motion that they need things to be sped up and to do things. And the amount of times I hear, oh, there's not enough hours in a day, like we can control that, or the amount of time people waste scrolling social media in a day. Like, I'd love to understand how many hours in a day people are actually being productive. I'd probably put a ballpark figure of around 3 to 4 hours, maybe 5 at tops, because people are using mobile phones to scroll, they're doing things, and that obviously impacts efficiencies. That impacts how much money's wasted. It adds to people being made redundant for whatever reason if they're not doing the right work, and it leads to maybe higher absenteeism, which obviously costs more money because you've got to do more recruiting, or you've got to get people in, or whatever the route is. And then you could have a knock-on effect that has a bigger effect on the government because they've got to keep paying out all these fees. And I think I think people are really not intentionally, but contradicting themselves when they say, oh, AI is going to take my job. And look around,
It
Rupesh,
is the
especially
other, exactly, yeah, right. It just saves 80% of my time, roughly.
yeah,
Like, if you think about it, using better technologies just
yeah,
saves our time.
yeah.
And in that
And I
more
mean,
time, we can do better things.
yeah. And I think if you look at it, and I think that's a great point, Rupesh, if you look at it from especially here in the UK, a lot of smart appliances are becoming more and more increasingly brought into people's kitchens, whether it's a Samsung smart freezer and fridge freezer, or whether it's a smart oven or whatever it is, a lot of IoT being brought into the kitchen. I think it's really important. Smart speakers, they haven't taken away anything. They've just made your life a lot easier. And it's
I
very
have one
interesting.
right here.
There you go. People have Google Home or Alexa, and people say, oh, AI is going to take my job. Yet they use a mobile phone like an iPhone and say, hey, Siri, or hey, Alexa, and well, it's popped up here. And that's NLP and that's AI. And it's just like, well, if you own an iPhone, you agree with emotion. AI is pretty cool. And I always say the joke, imagine if Amazon next day delivery got taken away, which uses God knows how much amount of emerging technology and high technology to make sure that people get time. I think there would be uproar. So I think it's a really misconceived, or really, I wouldn't say stupid, because I understand the reason why people have it, but I don't agree with it whatsoever, because I think it's more just companies don't want to share, and people hear the buzzwords digital transformation, chatbots, AI, or RPA, which means robotic process automation, or other buzzwords, and you just think people don't actually say what it does. And I think that's what we try and change at AI Journal, and it's something I've seen that you try and change as well through these podcasts. So yeah, that'd be my kind of core message, and I think it's really interesting what you're saying as well, how we can all take it back to be educated.
So, like, the basic thing is, right? Like you and me work very closely with AI. So in that also, what we are trying to do is we are trying to build more people jobs.
Yes.
But people think it is the other way around, because it just cannot function like that. Like, when we are to run something around AI, it has to be decent, has to be peer to peer, has to be, how do I say, keeping privacy, data dignity, and everything in it.
Yes.
So that's why the way we do things are different than the way other people do things. Right?
Yes.
So
I agree.
anyway, now in education, what do you think? Like, what part of education will have the biggest impact when we have great AI technology?
Oh, that's a
Like,
great
see,
question,
we are
Rupesh.
at the tip of an iceberg right now. We are
Yeah.
just at robust analytics. We still aren't at a point where I'm like, hey Google, go do all the shopping for me, and Google will
Yeah.
go do all the shopping for me. It just doesn't work like that.
Yes.
Like we have to tell one thing every time we buy. But it
Yes.
will take time for it to get to a point where that will happen too. Just as an example. But you see my point, right? As AI tech is going to emerge, our lives are going to change. And
Yes.
we need to adapt to that. How do you think what part of education would be most how do I say, impacted by because of AI?
I don't know if I'm the best person to answer, but I mean I've got my own ideas, but that's not to mean it's right or wrong. But I mean, if you look at a sector like healthcare, so a very critical area, right? The area that keeps people alive and keeps people healthy. And I think the big problem with sorry about that. The big problem with AI is the rate of adoption. So you're seeing it with VR and AR, and you're seeing a lot of smart glasses, and you're seeing all the hype around the Oculus, and you're seeing what's the Microsoft one called? I keep forgetting the Microsoft headset. Forget the name of it. When that's coming out, that's going to be
Which
something
one?
that the Microsoft one, HoloLens by Microsoft.
HoloLens. Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
HoloLens. So when things like that come around, it's the market adoption, and I don't think companies and people are quite ready for it. However, you look at it from a commercial side, and I think people are a lot more ready for it because they see the gains very quickly. They don't see social always takes a lot longer to build in, and I think we're going to have something similar. I forgot who told me this, but they said that we're going to have something similar like the like how the iPhone came out, and it was a very slow rollout. But once it got moving, everyone wanted one, and everyone wanted to get their hands on one. It became very exclusive, whilst everyone still kind of had one, and that's why they bring more and more models out. And I think it's going to be very similar to that with VR. And I don't think I was saying to someone at Aircards, a great company, that the adoption is going to be about another 10 years away. I personally think I could be wrong, but I don't see it being the next 5 years. But I do see it. I mean, like Lenovo brought out a really cool headset, and I think that's the challenge with educating people because the adoption rate. But I mean, you look at companies like RPA is a big talked about point at the moment, intelligent automation or hyper automation, and a lot of those companies are aiming like UiPath went public and they've done great. And there's the other ones, the trifecta as we call it, the Blue Prism, Automation Anywhere, and that's really becoming a great hotspot. But it's been around for quite. I mean, UiPath was born in 2005, I think, is when the founder set it up from Romania. And you think it's taken all this time to get there. It's only been in 2017 it really started to take off, and companies thought, oh, okay, we can implement this. And now they're all really seeing the benefits. The adoption is becoming so much quicker. And I think it's going to be the same with education on AI, because a lot of people, unless you're in the same kind of circles that with professors or people that understand it, the general or people that aren't in it, I'm not calling it general population, there's still a lot of big businesses that just with that CTOs are being hired at a quicker rate than ever before because they need to understand how to build these into their logistics, into their dashboards, into their marketing, how to build it, because no one understands it. And I mean, you see the labor shortages. They're saying there's not enough people to fill the jobs. There's data engineer shortages because more and more companies are wanting to implement it, but no one has the skills. And I think that's where the real problem lies. It's not that people don't understand it. It's just the resources to talk about it. And people want to get really technical. It's like finance. They want to use very technical terms to stop you digging and stop asking questions. And I think it's the same. It is arguably the
It's
same
like
with AI and
it's
cloud.
like people think it's like people think algorithms something some kind of a rocket science, but it is essentially a flowchart.
Yeah. I mean, it's not hard to grasp, right, Rupesh? What do you want to do with your business? How do you want to? And I'm speaking to some great guy, expert AI, Matt, and he was saying you break it down into three core areas. You want to reduce your spend, increase your productivity, or reduce your company's bottom line, so you become more profitable. When you look at it that way, and AI can help you learn data sets quicker, and it can automate a lot of projects. So you're not chasing invoices, which you can use RPA for. It's all robots chasing it for you, and you get your payment quicker, and then you've got better cash flow, and then you can spend more money on marketing quicker, or you can chase other initiatives. And I think once you look at it that way, it's a really simple concept to understand. It's not AI isn't a tricky concept. The trickier side is the ethics and the frameworks and the regulations, because there's a lot of innovation on what it can do, like what it
I'd say
can do.
utility.
Very broad. Yeah.
I'd say utility. Utility is one aspect we forget to consider when we are looking for the masses. Like if we
Yes.
think about it, $50 phone or £50 phone should also have the basics of AI which a person can use, but it comes down to $1,000 or
Yes.
$900. So that big gap which is there, which somehow has to be bridged through software,
Yes.
where the lower end phones can actually do all the RPA which you spoke about, where invoicing can be taken care of, financing can be taken care of, accounting can be taken care of, etc., etc., etc.
Yes.
So let's see how it goes. We are also working. I personally am working to solve that specific problem you just spoke about
Yes.
in a very different way, but we are still only on Android. We still haven't gotten to iOS.
Yeah.
So yes, education, right? Again. Now tell me, how would this impact? What do you think? How would it impact the extracurriculars we are involved in? Because most of the times we learn more in our extracurriculars than the schooling or the education. Because
Yes.
it is about working with people, not just studying from books and being able to recite it in front of people, right?
Yes.
Like the real skill comes in when whatever you have learned, you can implement with a group of people and work on it together.
Absolutely.
So, what do you think? How would later, like you said, a 5 year timeline where people have started utilizing AI better in various ways? So, what do you think in 5 years will happen? Where, like, how would it affect the extracurriculars?
Yeah. It's a good question. It's a question I get asked quite a lot to try and see where we're going and what we're doing. And I always stick with the notion, Rupesh, we don't know what we don't know, and there's a lot we don't know. If you look at how long the world's been around, and you really look at how long technology's been around, or sophisticated technology, it's not long. We're not that far in. I mean, internet's been around what, maybe 25 years or something, if that, 30 years, somewhere around there. And you just think,
Maybe
yeah,
more.
we're not that far into this idea, and people are all of a sudden, look at how quickly it's being adopted, and imagine what it's going to be like in 30 years. I reckon we've barely touched the sides of what the internet's going to be able to unlock for us. I mean, the COVID, as Ollie Kogan from Alpha Lake AI calls it, a catalyst for change. Everything swapped to being online, being digital. You can run companies abroad. You can run companies. You don't, all companies, not all companies, but big companies saying, like Twitter, you don't have to ever return to the office. Go work abroad. Go work remotely. Go where you want. That kind of opportunity to open those kind of doors is mind blowing. So I think it's where it is in 5 years. The rate of adoption will be mind boggling, but I don't know to what degree, but I reckon we'll see a lot more because AI adoption is just becoming more and more. And you said it perfectly. You said, as we look at these things, the price comes down and the cost comes down, and that's what's going to happen. And it gets more effective once you can lower your price, you get into the market, and you can.
There's two ways to it, right?
Rate
Again,
of adoption is better.
like there's two ways to look at this again. Either
Yeah.
the $50 or £100 or £50 phones should be that good, just as an example, where they have all the basic necessities, or it should be easy to buy an expensive phone,
Yeah.
where it would actually help people get utility of the tech. Because
Yeah.
we all know the tech is already there.
Yeah.
Like all the tech right now as utility, like let's say out of all the people in the world, barely 2, 3, or maybe 10% of people get top-notch tech to use,
Yes.
but others don't. It
Yes.
is not because they cannot get it or anything. It's just because of on there's no proper education on how to use it.
Yes.
And that can be solved by simplifying it, right? It is very
Yeah.
hard to simplify tech problems rather than to overcomplicate.
Yes. I think
So
that's a great point, Rupesh, because just quickly, if you look at phones, imagine if I gave you imagine the phones that are £50 a day or £20 a day. If we had them 10 years ago, they'd be out of this world. They'd be something, there'd be class phones. They'd be, whoa, what's this? How do you do all this technology? Now you just look at it and think, like whatever.
it's
Like it's
just a
not that
time.
special. And it's that kind of thing that makes me think. Imagine what we're going to have in 10 years. I mean, looking at my iPhone 12 and my laptop at the moment, you just think 10 years from now we're going to have things I can't even conceive, like ideas you can't even put in your head, because as soon as VR gets adopted, or smart glasses, or what Tesla's doing and what they're doing with, I mean, looking at Tesla, and I got taught this by Trevor, it's a whole ecosystem. It's not just a car. You can change the shape of a car very quickly. You can put a design team together and say, change the shape, look at it a different way. It's the infrastructure inside that car that is making them a game changer. It's the IoT they're using, the AI they're using, the recognition through sensors, and using all sorts of lidar sensors and everything. It's that makes that
Tesla doesn't use LiDAR. Tesla doesn't use LiDAR.
Yeah. But pulling up all those technologies are what going to be making companies like BMW, Volkswagen, the leaders, because if they use the technology can change. The shape of a car can always change. I mean, that's where you get the edge, right?
This exactly, like now, if we are talking about autonomous driving eventually, like, all of this leads to autonomy in some sense when it comes to travel.
Yes.
Right? So in that, like you said, there's so many senses in the car from outside. Then as users, we take pictures of us in the car and put them on social media on various places. That
Yes.
that is kind of like, I don't know if this is possible or no yet. Like,
Yes.
of course, if it is possible, shout out to Elon. Let's make it work.
Yes.
Like all of us have our own personal profiles on various social medias, and I'm pretty sure everyone has pictures with cars from inside, outside, or travel journeys, or however it is.
Yes.
That can be used in the sensors inside the car when people are actually driving or they fall asleep or something like that, right?
Yes.
To kind of have safety for them. Like
Yes.
you walking to your car, you have your phone, you connect your phone to your car. There's some way, you see that there is that connection which is always there with smart cars. On
Yes.
how your social media would kind of help the cameras inside recognize who you are, and
Yes.
and how it can be personalized to you personally in your car.
Yes.
So let's see how it goes.
Yeah. No, it'll be an interesting journey to watch, and I think that's why it's so exciting with education, because when you have all these things happening, it teaches people to think what's possible and what's not possible, and that's what annoys me at school, especially in the UK. I don't know what it's like in India, but I honestly feel like there needs to be a massive reform, and it's something we're pushing forward: training and education, and bringing in courses or making it accessible. And I don't know what the barriers to entry will be to that, but I think it's so important, because especially when I was at school, I'd say now things such as what they class as important subjects wouldn't be important to me, because revising for exams, it's not important. I can find, unless you start getting to the place where you need to be a doctor or a lawyer and you need to understand these things, so you've got it in the top of your head when you're in court or doing a surgery, I completely understand. But a lot of the time, and maybe I'm slightly wrong on this, but I think a lot of the time it's using your initiative and it's using on the spot thinking, right? It's how can I answer this now? I'm in a boardroom or I'm in a meeting. How can I get this done now? And I think school, and that ultimately comes down to creativity. How can I get a better answer to a better question? And I think that's what AI teaches us, and I think that's what these things think, and that's why I'm so keen on education, because I think it needs to change in schools. All this revise, this pointless paragraph from a book. Why do I need to learn that? Why do I need to know that? Largely I don't. So it's
no, I agree to it and I disagree to it in a holistic sense. Like,
yes,
it is not that we have personalized schools here. Like now we are seeing that little transformation towards it, where uh, there are online courses, online platforms like EDX, YouTube,
yes,
Coursera, where people go learn the courses they want. And that kind of makes it a little more personalized, where they can go try the things out in practice.
yes,
But like you said, learning those big paragraphs, all of that comes
yes,
into picture when we are sitting in a classroom. Like
yes,
when there's 50 students, 20 students learning together, those jamming ideas, the questions coming out from all of them separately. Like everyone has their own question. We learn from those questions too, right? So that's how it goes. Like that's why learning those things holistically and paragraph wise doesn't sound bad. How do I say? It makes sense to me, but
Yes.
when we are learning online, it doesn't.
Yeah.
Because then we have our brain works in a way we remember instances. And those instances, when we study on tech, they're direct. Like there's no
Yeah.
distraction there. Like if you think about it, if you're sitting in a classroom and there's a lecture going on, half the time it is messing around with your friend or whatever, or we are planning some bullshit in class.
Yes.
Normally, kids like us do that, right? So, like most of the times, that is the difference in both the types of education. Being
Yes.
in a class and studying alone. You can get more done with respect to theory on what we study, but for practical exercises, it has to be with the classes. Like
Yes.
if you're there's a activity, team building activities in there. Like then there's we can get down to many things. Like we were blessed to have a lot of extracurriculars in our school. That's why
Yes.
we could kind of work with each other always and get things done.
Yes. I agree.
And that is how it goes, right? Like there's no point reciting all the books in the world if you cannot use it to help one person.
Yeah. I agree. I fully agree. So I think it's a great point because it's how do you people always want I always look at it put by the point if you want to do more become or you want to earn more become more valuable, right? So learn more, read more, do more. You do it as well, Rupesh. I know from working with you, you're very aggressive on learning, on helping, on doing, on thinking, and that's the way I always look at it and think if you can really push yourself and do more. I think AI is going to fast track that because it will give you answers to easier ways of doing things, and that's why I think it's crucial to implement it in the early schools, like you were just saying, and to make sure people understand this and to really do. And I completely get it because not everyone does agree with me, but at least I put my opinion out there and viewpoint out there that it's like, well, to me, learning that kind of stuff is pointless. I'm not saying university or anything like that's pointless. And obviously, you need to like anything, I need to remember things and I need to write a lot of notes so I remember it, so I remember people's names or people's businesses or their goals or whatever they need to do. But I do think the large majority of it, I just wish they would be more creative because the more I'm getting on, the more I see how powerful creativity is. And you see it as well with the connections and what you do and how to build your product Pixie and all these awesome things. It comes down to creativity. How do you create new ideas? By being creative, to think there's a challenge, what can I create to help them? And I think it's always overlooked, and it's like why do I need to focus so much on mathematics when I'm awful at finances, and I'm not just pulling this to me. I just think
I know that I work with you.
yeah, I'm awful at finances, and everyone knows it. And I'm very upfront. I'm not good with understanding balances. I'm not great with maybe paying people, but I just think it's not my area. It's not my focus, and I think all that stuff you can get help with. So I think it's a very
And that is where it changes the game, right? Like you
that's how
think
AI
about
can
it.
help, right?
Exactly my point.
Yeah,
Like that is
because it's
where
not
it changes
necessarily
the game.
yeah, because back to your point, it's not necessarily the person, but it's their traits. Like some things I just don't value as much. And if I speak to someone that's in the finance world, they're so hammering on it. And you think, well, it's not my game. I don't understand it. And as a small business owner, it's not somewhere I prioritize when I get up in the morning for whatever reason, bad or good. It's more not
It
me as
is
a person,
just
but it's
you
the
are
trait.
busy buying and selling. You like
Exactly.
as a business owner, you're busy buying and selling whatever your job is or whatever your business is, right?
Yes.
But those boring parts, which are compliances, which we all have to follow,
Yes.
like in accounting and blah 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 blah. That is where a lot of people have their other service. There's an entire industry there,
Yeah.
which I see is going to get largely impacted. Like if
Yes.
you think about it, if all these things are automated to a certain extent, a lot of chartered accountants, a lot of accountants, 80% of their time will be saved and they'll be able to consult better than to kind of get stuck in compliance problems.
Yes.
And that is what happens these days, right? Like this is my observation. Most of the
Yes.
times, your chartered accountant is busy just accounting your invoices because
Yes.
you as a business owner, not you directly, like a normal XYZ business, small business owner who's not used to handling tech will kinda just take all the invoices, throw it at the accountant. Accountant will have to do everything, and that is a big problem. Like it is just a waste of time. That all can be automated through tech. Like if
Yes.
everything is digital, all
But some
those
people love
basic.
doing it, right? And then they panic and think my job's being taken. But to me, I'd rather have a machine doing it or a robot doing it. And I'd still have a finance person, but I just make sure they've got more spare time to double check the books or think of new revenue streams or to think of better, I don't know, better way of being productive with that because machines
Getting
aren't
a value on
intuitive.
the buck. Like every money, every penny we invest should on how it cycles down and we make better money on it.
Yes.
The focus should be there, not just money wise. Money is just one resource we talk about. Same applies for influence, same applies for networking, same applies for connections, same applies
Yes.
for what your kind of services, how you work, and
Yes.
everything like that.
Yes.
So we actually like the argument where AI is going to take jobs. It is I see it go the other way around. I see a person who's not learned accounting can become an accountant for someone else just because that person is a good user of.
Yes.
Like we see a lot of education or a lot of degrees which we have today go move to a certain extent. Like
Yeah.
we all know in big organizations, there's a chunk of people who actually do work. There's a chunk of people who are into management decisions, and there's a lot of
Yes.
CEOs. Like we've seen that. Like I
Yes.
don't mean to say it in a bad sense, but the work a lot of people do, it just ends up being like that because there's so much work to do.
Yeah.
Like you cannot let go of all the basics which
Always
are
find
there,
more to do. Yeah.
right? Like it goes the other way around, right? So
Yes.
that's how it works. So let's see on how all of these things are going to change ahead. Like I
Yeah.
see a lot of cryptocurrencies will have a lot of different play in this because like like we you and we do business. Right? We all the money we do, we all the business we have is online.
Yes.
So that online business where you and me actually have to kinda account it or kinda have to, process all of those compliances together. All of that
Yeah.
can be automated. Why do we need a person for
Yes.
that?
Exactly.
Everything is basically followed up on rules then.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's interesting because you think that's the model to aim for, really. I mean, even when you're in a big business, you still have to approve everything, and it's very interesting to just see how automatic. I mean, I have payments go out my account automatically, and I don't even check from time to time. Obviously, I check most of the time, but there are times where I just don't check, and you just know it's sorted because it's just all automatic, and it's just that's
You
done.
just
Like
print
on
it
paper,
out, put
just
it in
done.
your yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
That's how it goes. But
yeah,
people don't know it is possible like this.
yes,
Or they don't know there are mediums or there are processes which can help them digitize their handwritten accounting. Like
yeah. Not just accounting though, Rupesh. Like things like marketing. It's huge for marketing. I was reading about how RPA is going to be big in reporting and big in helping fix different areas from technical SEO right through. And you think it's that's the way it can kind of correlate all the data. Say if you put input data fields through the month, it will just automatically build you a report, and there you can just send it to the client, and all that reporting you add a few lines of commentary in, and it populates it all for you. Or using things like Google Dashboard, which is again a free tool to use, and I think Google's a great example because they just make so much free, like Google Analytics, Google Sheets, Google Documents, Google Share Drive. It's just all open source, all free, and I
their
think
business is on advertisements. Like
yeah,
most of Google revenue is from advertisements.
yeah, I read
Like
it's something
as a
like
real estate for advertisement.
yeah, and I think it's really good. I think it's really powerful AI in marketing, like conversational AI. I think we're only touching the sides. I think that's going to be the biggest opportunity going. And I mean, if we were at a further stage, me and you, Rupesh, I'd be saying we need to build an AI company, a conversational AI company, or we need to be investing in one
We
because that's
already have one.
that's what I see the future. I honestly see it as a future.
Makes sense. Makes sense. Obviously, yeah. Their tech development, like tech adaptability, takes more time than tech development.
Yes.
Like I personally, I am also experiencing that myself. Like all the
Yes.
things we spoke about, marketing, notes, study, research,
Yes.
accounting, invoicing, all of these can be automated through our app, which we have. Like not
Yes.
automated, at least you can make data sets out of it, and those data sets can be connected to your other apps, and you can process all it if you have teams who understand how these things work. But for who don't, we are building that part too. So that is not an issue.
Yes.
But my point being is, like, that is the thing, right? Why are we trying to make this more complicated with respect to tech development?
Yes.
Like, there's 1,000 buttons on your screen, of which only 10 buttons are used. Like,
Yeah.
if you think about it, you open an app, okay? Any app, I understand that things have to be there, but there's no utility to them. What can we do about it? Let's see. Let's see how a lot of startups work. There's a lot of major impact startups which are there all over the world. It'll be
Yes.
fun to see how tech development goes.
Yeah. And I'm very excited to see it as well with your next guests, Rupesh, and looking forward to seeing who you interview next to get them on and get their viewpoints, because obviously I'm still quite early on in this stage, but it's I always look at it from, if people disagree, I just say, well, at the end of the day, it's just a personal point of view. But I do see it, as you were saying, very important that we not try and jump and not try and predict too much, because there's still so much ahead of us. So anyone watching, I would say, make sure you educate yourself on it so you're not so skeptical and scared, as me and Rupesh are very optimistic about around AI. I know from working with him on a daily
Very
basis.
optimistic.
Yeah.
Like we are an AI first company. We all the approach or whatever we do would be around that aspect, because we think about it. All the tech which is done, it
Yeah.
sets a foundation for us to work on.
Yes.
And we try to go dig in that foundation, see on how that foundation can be changed. But
Yes.
utilizing the foundation well,
Yes.
that is what matters more, right? Like
Yeah.
there's like we just spoke about. Let's take Google for an example. There's so many tools which are already connected to each other. Like
Yes.
your entire organizations can run on one.
Yeah.
And people just don't know it is possible like that, because same utility problem. People don't know how these things can be utilized, and let's see on how we can find solutions for these and implement them through AI journey,
Yes.
through all our mediums we work on together. Anyway,
Yes. No, I love it. And that's the whole reason we exist and why we work together, Rupesh, to make sure people are educated and find us and understand us, and build great relationships and great tools for them to learn from. And I think that's the same passion me and you share, is to help people and to educate people, and through our two businesses that work together to help and engage and bring more people onto this world and exciting journey around AI. So it's a real pleasure, Rupesh, and I really want to thank you as well again for having me today on the show and being here with you. And I'm really looking forward, obviously, connecting with any of your audience that want to find out more. And yeah, looking forward to seeing your next shows and being on one down the line, next series or later on in this series. And yeah,
anytime, anytime.
keeping up the great work.
We are constantly in touch anyway, so there's not an issue.
Yeah.
If there is someone you'd want to suggest to have on the podcast, like we had in the last season, we'll go ahead and do that also. Again, it was great to have you on the show today.